3M earplug cases, which we've been talking about, gosh, for 8 months now.
Yeah, they're talking, and I think there'll be a resolution, especially after that last verdict that just came down, $110 million. So for two people.
That's right.
So I think there are really serious conversations going on, and I think that if you were in the military, what years was that again, Patrick?
2003 to 2015.
Yeah, and you have any kind of hearing loss or tinnitus, you better call and do something about it now, because I think if you wait, and there'll be maybe a futures deal, maybe not. It may not be, because there's not a futures deal on a lot of mass torts. They're going to certain law firms and settling their inventory, and that's it. There is no futures deal. So now's the time to do something. You need to call. If you were in the military in those years, please call us at 601-988-8888.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, you had the verdict about 10 days ago on the two cases. Now they're in a pause. The next trial is not until March 14th. So they actually have a pause right now until March 14th is the next trial in Tallahassee, Florida. Then 2 weeks later, you have your second trial in March, which will be interesting because the one on the 28th of March involves the second female service member. You've only had one so far. So there's two trials scheduled in March to work through this process. And as you've noted, 3M has lost the supermajority. If you kind of are scoring at home, it's been, I think, 9 in favor of the plaintiffs and 3 in favor of, 3M.
And all sizable verdicts.
That's right. All the verdicts have been, they actually have gotten bigger as each trial has gone.
Well, that's because more evidence is coming out, and I think everybody's getting a little more, once you try one case, you learn how to try it better the next time, because the facts are really bad for 3M. They're just real bad, and they're going to come to the table.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
And what folks, I was actually having a conversation last week with somebody, about it, and they were asking about those cases, and they were like, well, how did you get the earplugs? And I'm like, they're issued just like your body armor's issued, your weapons issued, your uniforms are issued. I said that was a standard issue item that you had those earplugs to use if you were in, and most people think, oh, I didn't deploy overseas. Well, this doesn't just apply to people who deployed overseas. They actually said, there are about 2 million service members who were issued these earplugs, and there's only about 300,000 who have submitted claims. So there's a lot of service members who have not at this point engaged their right. And you may not have an injury. You may have been in a position where you weren't exposed to loud noises or hopefully just don't have any, side effects as a result of the earplugs. But it applies if you were on the gun range, and everyone has to go through annual weapons qualification. You may have been out and had be a desk jockey. It's kind of a military term, but guess what? You were at the field doing a 2-week field exercise, and you were out in the field, and you were still around loud equipment, or you're with the field artillery unit, and they are doing gunnery exercises. So, it can apply to everyone across the board.
And that's another reason 3M will probably settle, because their exposure, if they don't settle now, could be substantial. So if you take out the biggest plaintiffs' firms, out of the business and they can't do it anymore, then no one's going to pursue those claims. And so those people are going to be left out unless there's a futures deal put together, and it doesn't appear there's going to be. So I think that they need to act now.
Well, why don't you share? Because we talk about lots of mass torts, and you've done them for more than 2 decades now. That people think about, it's a class action. Well, Mississippi doesn't have a class action statute.
That's correct.
And so really you end up kind of having what are called multi-district litigation. But it's hard to be a one-off plaintiff. If you're like, hey, I don't want to be part of the deal, I'm going to hire a lawyer, and that lawyer is going to take my case individually forward. Well,
very difficult. They're so expensive.
Yep.
You're talking about a case that I couldn't imagine. Each trial is probably several $100,000s to try a case. It's impossible to take an individual case all the way up. It has to be in a cluster to make it work. And so you need to be part of that cluster to get paid. Other than that, you could be out of luck.
I mean, it's kind of truly the statement I think comes in on these mass tort cases is their strength in numbers.
Right.
You know, that's why you listen to the radio, you're going to hear them advertise. You're going to see on TV, you see, you know, national, ad campaigns that take place because, you know, having strength, a number of people who have had similar problems as it relates to a product, you know, or a chemical or medical item or something of that nature, you know, is what allows, you know, these cases to go forward. There's no way, you know, one law firm could have handled 12 trials because, like you said, it would have cost millions of dollars for them to push these.
Absolutely. So as a group, you're right, the strength in numbers and actually sharing the cost.
That's right.
To bring these cases to trial.
We've got Daniel on the line. So good morning, Daniel, and welcome to the radio program.
Yes, sir.
Hey, glad to have you. What can we help you with today?
I had a question about the 3M thing that you guys were talking about.
Yes, sir.
I was in the Marine Corps from '98 to 2006, and kind of like y'all were saying, you know, it's kind of an issue thing. But I've seen the commercials, and I mean, I don't know if I use those or not. I couldn't say 100%. How would I go about that? Because when I was separating from the military, I did have a hearing test, and they told me that I was not rated enough for service-connected disability, but to come back in a few years and they would reevaluate it. So.
Yes, sir. Well, first, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate that. You know, how it comes about, because a lot of people don't realize, because there were a variety of earplugs that the different branches of service were issued, but you are in the timeline, because you served after 2003, that you may qualify. So, you know, what firms are doing, especially ours, is you get in touch with us, which you can do at 601-988-8888, and there's actually kind of called a plaintiff's fact sheet that comes out to you that has pictures of different types of earplugs. So we're really relying on you to go through your memory bank to say, okay, yeah, that's the one I remember using was X earplug that's there, and then you hit the nail on the head. The military does a great job of doing annual physicals. You know, as you may know, I spent 24 years in the Army National Guard, so I'm very used to those. And you take that hearing test and, you know, sit in that trailer and you push the button when you hear the beeps. But it's great because I deployed in 2009, so I have hearing tests before 2009. I have all my hearing tests when I came back from my deployment to Afghanistan until I retired back in 2014. So it's easy to be able to say, okay, if indeed you used those earplugs, you know, was your hearing better or worse before or after when you use those? So, you know, it's a lot of using your memory and then using the records that are contained within the military themselves. Because most people don't realize, oh, I was issued. They don't know the name. You know, I wouldn't have been able to tell you I was issued 3M earplugs until this happened. But then when you see the pictures, you're like, yep, that's exactly the ones I had because we all wear them on our uniform.
Yeah, I have a question for you. Do you remember going from a longer earplug to a shorter earplug while you were serving?
The ones that obviously at the time I really wasn't paying attention to them, but the ones I remember were the kind that they were like foam that you kind of roll up in your finger and stick in your ears. That's the ones I remember using.
Yeah, I think those were the yellow, but I mean, there's a variety, and even these 3M ones to a degree had a foam component of it. So that's why, you know, because there were so many service members. And they're not telling you when you're issued. They're not saying, hey, you're getting issued 3M earplugs. You know, it's going by what you kept in your little earplug, you know, case right there on the, you know, buttonhole of your uniform, you know, or LBE. Ultimately, mine, you know, were chained to my LBE, you know, so that I could quickly get to them, probably just like you did in the Marine Corps. But so it's literally using that and making the determination of you being familiar with what type of earplug you use. Because I was commissioned way before you back in 1990, and I can tell you the earplugs back then were earlier than the ones I used when I deployed, you know, to Afghanistan. So I used a variety variety of earplugs over time because the contracts that the military has changes, over time. But your 6-year window, you may very well have been exposed to those 3M earplugs, and that's why we present pictures through that plaintiff fact sheet for you to go, yep, I didn't know the name, but yep, that's exactly the ones I used.
It's worth your time to make a call. We'll send you that information, and then you may qualify. And like I said, you need to do it on the front end because I think they're going to settle with certain law firms, which will end the litigation, pretty much put you out of the circle. So you need to do something now.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate it, Daniel. And again, thank you for the service. And anyone listening, you can always call us at the law firm at 601-988-8888.